If you're anything like me, and you probably are because you're watching this, you have a box of power cables somewhere because we always need more power cables. And all of these are great, and the vast majority of power cables you come across with are fine, except for this one. This one scares me. Stay tuned, and I'll tell you why. The first thing you're going to notice is how light this cable is. That alone isn't an indication of quality sometimes, but it should be considered. And if you squeeze it, there is space in between here. This shielding it's too big. There's room in here. I can squeeze that and it compresses. One thing that might stick out to you, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, is we have a kettle plug here with a ground going to a type A connector. So just, line at neutral and no ground on it. That alone isn't necessarily bad. I think it's the Xbox 360 or maybe the Xbox One. It uses this, and that's fine because the power supply doesn't have the ground, but this cable has the ground. It has live, neutral, and ground. And it's there. You can plug a ground into that. Whereas ones made specifically for this application, that's usually filled. So you just can't plug it into a machine as is. I found this in my drawer of cables. I don't know where I got it. And I almost used it. I actually plugged it in completely, and I was going to turn the machine on when you have that afterthought of muscle memory thinking, this plug didn't feel right. And then I chased it out and said, oh, whoa, this is expecting a ground, but there's no ground here. So it made me think, well, where is this ground going? Is it dummy? Does it just end right here? Did they tie it into the neutral? I don't know. So we're going to cut this open and we're going to find out, because I think that we're going to be surprised at the cheap quality of this cabling. So let's cut it open and take a look. So the first thing we're going to do is just cut it open, and I want to take a look at some of these wiring. So like I expected, there is room in here, and it looks like we just have our live and neutral. There is no ground wiring in here. We'll get the meter out and see if any of those are connected. But I'm curious to see what type of cable this is, because I would venture to say it's not all copper, because that would just cost way too much money. All right, so we're going to strip some of this back, and the easiest way to look at this, because I'm venturing that this is copper-cladded aluminum. So basically it's an aluminum wire with a copper shell on it. It still conducts, and there's different varying electrical properties on why you would and wouldn't want to use this. But the easiest test is to get a lighter. Now this cable here, this is a good cable. This is a cable I'll use for testing if I need to wire into something. So this is good copper, and if we light it, it doesn't do anything, right? The copper's just going to heat up. If we light this, if it's copper-clad aluminum, it's going to fray, and this might actually be copper. Let's fray this a little bit, and let's see, because what would happen is the copper would bend back, leaving the aluminum. And I'm actually surprised. That is likely copper. So, all right, so that's a plus for this. So it's at least safer, but we still have a kettle plug expecting a ground. And we got to figure out, where does that ground go? So let's get the meter and start plugging into this. All right, so my first assumption is that the ground is wired into the neutral up here. And that doesn't seem to be the case. Let's just make sure they didn't wire it into the live. Nope. So now let's see. So neutral is, and yes, no. So the ground is just floating. It just goes right here and ends. So probably under this plastic housing here, the ground just comes out, the connector's there, and it's just left that way. I wonder if we can dig this open. Let's pause here, see if I can cut this off and see if we could see where that ground goes. Now, if I was a smart man, I would have went down to the workshop and got the Dremel and the bandsaw and saved a lot of time and cutting myself getting this open, but I decided to hack at it for the past 15 minutes. And it has made me even more upset with the design of this, because this is just an empty space here where the ground plug would have went. And as I was hacking away at this, I'm trying to think of who thought this was a good idea, right? I understand quantities of scale and you want to cut back, and anything we can do to cost save is good. But what did we really save here? Because you bought a 3-prong female kettle connector. You have actually copper wire in here. And then you chose to go with a Type A plug. All right, so great. If this was the application, you could have filled this, okay? Just like any other plug. We could have filled this and it would have been fine. Or you could have got a proper grounded 3-plug male adapter on the other end and went through it and then charged an extra 2 cents or whatever it is for the end product. This isn't safe. And like most pieces of safety equipment, when you need it, it's too late. I almost used this on a computer. I don't remember where I got this. Like I said, it was just in a cable, but somebody somewhere probably has something plugged in with this cable that needs a ground. Yes, ground and neutral kind of do the same thing, but ground is when you have an issue. That's there for your emergency moments. And this had all the right beginnings to be a good cable. It had the good parts here, the good female side, and yeah, we probably could have made that work if they plugged this, but this isn't safe, and it upsets me. And please check your cables. You know, if you have cables out that you don't know, you got them from questionable sources, it takes 2 seconds to look at them. Make sure they're fine. Feel them. Make sure they're good. If you want to bring out a meter or measure them, whatever you need to do, do it. But be safe out there. Be safe with your cables, because the cables keep your equipment safe, and in the end, they keep you safe. And that's where we're going to end this. It's a much shorter video than what I usually put out, but I got a lot of things going on this week, and I wanted to show this cable. It's been sitting on my desk staring at me for the longest time, and I just needed some time to hack at it and show you what it was like. So do me a favor, check your cables tonight.